Uh, Preeti, Preeti, I request if you can share your screen, please. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Hi. A very good morning to everyone, to all the participants on this exciting session today on how we are able to accelerate digitalization of processes, data, and human uh, uh, intervention, reduce human intervention on our project delivery. So first of all, let me introduce the speakers and the speakers today for this session. So I'm Shitanshu Jain. I'm part of digital construction team here at Capricorn. I will be your moderator today and one of the speakers. Along with me, I have Mr. Chakresh Jain, chairman at Capricorn Technologies, and Ms. Preeti Rao, technical specialist and solution specialist for construction solutions and design solutions from Autodesk India. So to begin with, Preeti, next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. So just stating out what is today's agenda in the session that we are going to cover. So we are going to cover briefly about who we are as Capricorn, why we need digital transformation in the construction industry, and not talking specifically about the construction part of it, but the entire life cycle of a project, starting from concept design, then your construction phase, and then operation phase of the project. Then we'll go specifically into common data environment, design coordination and collaboration, construction project management, and then how do we implement such a platform or technology in any organization. So first, to begin with, we would like to start with a brief introduction about Capricorn Technologies, who we are, what we do. So for this, I would like to invite Mr. Chakresh Jain, chairman at Capricorn Technologies, to introduce who we are as Capricorn.
Good morning, and thank you, Shitanshu. And so good morning and welcome to everyone for this exciting series of webinar which we have been running since yesterday. And first of all, I like to thank CEI for partnering and bringing us on board for the technology sessions for the Engineers Association. Last year also we ran the similar series, and this year we have been having, since yesterday we had 2 sessions and today again we have 2 sessions. And today's session is very specifically focused on the construction side, where we know there are huge challenges, and digitization can really solve a lot of issues, which will Shitanshu and Preeti would be covering in depth. So it's my privilege to introduce Capricorn. Of course, we've been in this industry for now more than 30 years with pan-India presence and serving more than 20,000 customers across the country from the construction industry. So of course, because we've been running a lot of these webinars and this part series, I'll not spend much time on it. But I'd like to give a small update about Capricorn, that now we have become a part of a global alliance company, Win0. So if Preeti, if you could move to the next slide. And with this global alliance, we are now part of the group company with presence in US through US CAD, in UK with CADline, and Australia with A2K. So with this, we will be able to bring global expertise to India. We'll be able to leverage some of the global experts available in each of this country, and we'll be bringing them very shortly. Just a little bit about Win0. So Win0 is about, and that's exactly the current challenge which we are focused on, winning the sustainability. So that's what we are focusing on, and of course working together with engineers like yourself towards zero impact on mother nature and earth. So that's what we are focused on as Win0. And with that, I'd like to now hand over back to Shitanshu for the next continuation of.
Thank you so much. So with this, I would like to hand it over to Ms. Preeti. She has been one of the evangelist in this area around construction technologies and design technologies in India. And coming from Autodesk background, they are the leaders in design technology. So why? So first, you would covering more around why do we need, first of all, digital transformation in the construction? What is the need of the hour? Why is it required? And then second, more around how during the design and pre-construction phase of the our construction projects, this technology can be used to have better outcomes. So with this, Preeti, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Chakreji and Shitanshu. As Shitanshu rightly mentioned, I would be talking about what's the need for digital transformation. And while I talk about the need for digital transformation, I would be talking about the technology associated in the industry. Where is the industry moving in? What's the current challenges in the industry, especially on the construction side of the business, which is there. Now, from the last 40 years, Autodesk has been working with the construction industry in order to enable design and build projects. And while we're talking about design and build aspect of the project, we want to use the data which is being generated in the construction industry in a very better way in this case. First of all, when we initially started in the industry, we saw the shift from a drafting board to a computer with a CAD design coming into picture in this case. Then the industry started talking about enabling BIM-based design or building information modeling-based design in this case. In the last few years, we have seen this transition extending towards every organization talking about the digital design to construction change which is therein, not only till construction, but also till the operations phase of the project which is therein. So today I'll be talking about how do I manage these digital transformation along with the help of Autodesk Construction Cloud tools which are therein. Now, how do we collaborate and share these information with different stakeholders who form a very important piece of our project in this case? Now, even with technical or technological advancements which is therein, and we have clearly seen that technology has been one of the clear catalysts which has accelerated this digital change in this case, basically. The most recent impact, we have not still come out of it, the pandemic or the COVID aspects, which has rapidly expanded the need of the cloud tools which are therein. And COVID brought the change where a lot of people adopted the cloud tools, and that is what is expected definitely from the industry in this case, basically. And we are seeing these new change, new transformation, where owner operators also want to move to these kind of cloud technologies as well. Now, there's a lot to build. Now, with the increasing population, there's definitely more demand which is therein for infrastructure projects, for housing aspects which are therein. There are a lot of services which are coming out of these projects as well. And the architecture, engineering, and construction professionals, they form the very important centerpiece of this particular built environment in the design and construction phase. And definitely, there's a lot to build in this case, basically. Now, with the growing population, as we saw the population growth, definitely construction projects also needs to grow with it, basically. So there are around 30,000 buildings which are required every day to be built between now and 2050 in this case, basically. In order to cater to the needs of the urban dwellers who would be coming on to the metro cities which are therein, and we are expecting a population of across 7 billion in this case, basically. Now, the public sector itself, if you see the spending, especially in 2021, it is subjected to project much higher than 8.5% just in 2020, which was there. And nearly, almost third of the firms, they are putting in a lot of efforts to complete the project on time and bid these projects on time, which might be subsequent to a lot of challenges which might be coming in the construction industry due to the labor issues, due to the pandemic, or due to the future projects at risk in this case, basically. Now, the concerns are across the board, basically. Now, while we talk about the increasing population, while we talk about the urban dwellers who are coming on the site, a lot of these multiple stakeholders use a lot of insight and data as a part of their project performance in this case, basically, so that they do not undergo or get into those penalties which are led with respect to the project in this case, basically. And data definitely falls under a very, very important piece in this case, whether it's the information coming in from the designers who form a part of the project to the stakeholders of the planning team or to the construction site, etc. So you see a lot of disconnected data which is connecting the construction teams in this case, basically. The next piece is the fragmented workflows in this case. Now, a lot of these information or data which is being passed on from one stakeholder to the other stakeholder, you see a piece of information which is getting omitted, or there could be information which is not being passed to the next discipline, which leads to a lot of costly reworks as a part of the project. It could be also connected to the processes which are being used in basically. The next piece is as BIM taking a lot of centerpiece for a lot of infrastructure projects where you see a lot of RFPs coming with BIM as a mandate. Preferably, there's a need of a lot of BIM design standards to be used in, which would tweak the workflows. It would definitely increase the design time and the cost, but definitely it would take care of the downstream aspects of construction and operational performance of that particular piece of project as well, basically. The fourth piece is these teams are not only organizational based, it could be across different disciplines. It could be across different verticals which are there. And when all these stakeholders come together on a particular piece of project with different set of information, knowledge, as a part of the project, it's bound to be siloed in this case. And definitely it would lead to a lot of project delivery delays in this case, basically. Now, what AC professionals are doing in this case is like they're trying to build in greater efficiencies through different ways of working in this case, basically. Now, while I'm talking about a different teams working as a part of the project. Now, when I talk about the new way of working in order to improve the efficiencies, now design build projects are definitely completed 102% faster compared to the traditional processes which are being used in the project which is there. Now, 82% of the firms which say that they use BIM are actually having a higher return of investment as they have reduced issues coming up as a part of the project, reduced errors which form as a part of the project as well. And the third piece as an efficiency is definitely the aspect of digitization, which could actually save almost 1.2 trillion in the design parameters which are there, basically. And that too, we are talking about all these savings in the design and construction phase within a span of 10 years as well. So change. And when we are talking about a change and adopting a new way of working and increasing our efficiency, it's definitely never easy in this case, basically. So the design build projects, which are definitely completed 102% faster than the traditional projects, has definitely gone through a lot of digitization change as a part of their project in this case, basically. And we definitely want to see those transformation as a part of our project, which is there, basically. Now, let's say whatever organization you belong to, and let's say you want to undergo this path of digital transformation change in this case. Now, let's say you're the very first in the digital journey. Let's say you're digitizing it for the first time during the analog processes in this case, basically, or you might be into exactly the next stage of integration where you're trying to connect different platforms and connect it with your current set of the technology which you're using in order to undergo this design or digital transformation. or you could be in the stage where you're trying to, you have implemented, digitized, and integrated your processes, but you're in the process where you're trying to analyze that particular piece of data, and you're using that data to optimize your processes and workflows in a better way, so you get a better ROI as a part of your projects as well. Now, there's no right tool as such. We recognize that, wherever you're in the journey, whether you're in the digitization journey, whether you're in the analysis or the optimization journey, you definitely need right tools for these jobs which are there in basically. So in order to adopt the right tool for the job, the first thing which comes into mind is being adaptable. When I say adaptable, it is not only changing the conditions, but it is also developing better teams, using better technologies to make the processes more streamlined and adaptable as a part of your project as well in this case, basically. The next piece is the technology which you're using it should not create a lot of downtime where you get into a lot of learning modes which are there. It should be definitely very, very easy to use it, so that all the project teams, definitely no matter which discipline they belong to and whatever is their level of experience in engineering and the construction industry, they should be able to access every piece of data which is definitely available to them in this case. And the third piece, which is becoming a norm in the industry right now, we want more automated processes, which is there and which is less of manual intervention in this case, but definitely we want tech expertise to run those automation, which could reduce the lot of repetitive tasks which form as a part of your project. So you want your life to be made more easier, and you want to reduce those time consuming and repetitive tasks as well, basically. Now, it's definitely worth the effort if you're in the stage of digital transformation, and if you really want to jump from an analog-based workflow, which I talked earlier, into a digital workflow and utilize the data, utilize the processes, utilize tool, and make your project more optimized in nature, Autodesk is there here to reach your desired outcomes, your automation as you want to use as a part of your process, also to make up your digital transformation setups inside your organization quite easier, so that you could save time and you can process or promote better collaboration, which is there in basically. Now, everyone understands the term BIM, which is highlighted on the slide, which is therein. But let's say it is definitely not a very easy task to fundamentally jump from an analog-based workflow to a digital workflow, which is therein basically. Now, in order to do that, it's better to understand what are we getting with the digital innovation when we undergo these transformation inside our organization, inside our projects, which is there in basically. The first thing is the issues which are very, very costly for a project, which involves a lot of your project cost because of these issues and errors which are there. The second piece is you want the project to be sustainable, economical, and preferably you want to speed up the phases of the design and coordination which is there in basically. Also taking into mind that the stakeholders who are involved as a part of the project have a very, very improved level of collaboration. They have a higher accountability with the data which is getting developed as a part of this digital transformation, and also seeing that this process which is used in the pre-design, the pre-construction phases are also taken downstream towards the post-construction stages to the operations and handover stage, and we reduce a lot of downtime risk which is involved in these case kind of projects as well, basically. Now, I would like to spend a lot of time on this particular slide where I'm talking about connected construction workflows which are therein. Now, if you see our today's design, coordination, and construction processes, we use a lot of tools which are either CAD enabled, BIM enabled, and we use a lot of review tools which are therein. So Autodesk definitely has a lot of these tools which are therein, but we are forgetting the very, very important piece of the data which is therein. That is the geometry, the project data, which is being created when BIM models are being produced, which is therein. Now, every discipline which prepares or creates this BIM information provides a lot of information, whether it is a part of a structural piece of the information to a mechanical, electrical piece, which forms a part of our project in this case, basically. Now, with that data, what you also want to do is like, you want to pass those information not only to the construction side, but you also want to do something very, very important in the pre-construction stage is estimating and costing that piece of the project in this case, basically. Now, while you're estimating and costing, you're also taking into consideration the different contractors or stakeholders who might form a part of that project. So you want to, qualify your subcontractors, enable the bidding process in a more automated fashion by using the connected workflows in this case. Now, while I'm doing these qualifications and the bidding process, definitely I am trying to do and also the construction and the project management piece where my planning and the budget stakeholders who are involved in the construction phase have a more collaborated piece of workflow in this case, basically. And last but not least, when we talk about infrastructure projects, which needs to be operated and maintained for the next 50, 100 years in this case, you want to have a more operational and close out workflows, which are more easier to handle, which could be used in the data could be used in the next 100 years by future generations for maintaining that particular piece of the project as well. Now, all these connected construction workflows looks very good, but then what do I get with that data? Because I am processing a lot of piece of information which is there in basically. What I could do in this case is like, I could have an analytic on the data which is therein, preferably in the form of number of design documents moving in and out of the organization, the delay time which is associated with transfer of data between design to construction, the number of costly RFIs which might form as a part of my project, how frequent are those? Can I reduce those RFIs? So I need these intelligent analytics, predictive analytics as a piece of my project which is therein. So that also forms a part of this connected construction workflow while I'm talking right now. Now, how does Autodesk enable this particular piece which is therein? Now, the earlier workflow which I talked about from connected construction to operations and maintenance, I'll talk about the very, very important piece where is the pre-construction stage where the architects, the respective stakeholders who are involved as a part of the designing phase, where they create their own piece of information in 3D geometries, preferably which also feeds you a lot of information which is attached to that particular piece of project in the terms of design aspects which are there. And basically, let's take an example of a simple structural element like a column. The architect defines it where it's to be there, and the structural guy decides the feasibility of that particular pier or column depending upon the site where it is located. The MEP guy would define in the aspects which are there in which would diverge around that particular structural element. So we are producing a lot of these information. So what we are trying to do is like, or the Autodesk Construction Cloud is utilizing that piece of design data from the design phase, taking it to the plan phase, so that to check we don't have any costly coordination issues which might form as a part of a project. I am also quantifying the bill of material because I am defining the geometry of that particular piece of the project or that particular building which is therein. I'm connecting it with the time and the cost aspects of that particular project. I'm also qualifying my subcontractors because I've got my quantities handy, so I could nominate these consultants as a part of the project. And definitely I am erecting and building it on the construction site where stakeholders from the budgeting, the project team, the cost teams are involved so that that particular project goes in a more feasible manner in this case, basically. Not to forget that I'm trying to maintain that particular piece of project in the operations and the maintenance phase as well in this case, basically. So Autodesk Construction Cloud enables and connects all these four pieces of the construction workflow together in order to end deliver that project as well as operate that project as well. But while I'm doing all these things, the bottom piece, I am using the same data which is there in the design phase to my construction. It could be in the form of a model, it could be in the form of a drawing, it could be just a cost and a budgeting sheet. It could be even an Excel planning sheet as well. And so these are different forms of the shared data which moves on with different stakeholders in this case, basically. And I'm getting my dashboards and insight which form an important piece of that particular piece of the project in this case, basically. So I'm talking about a unified environment where I am not only connecting workflows, I'm connecting the stakeholders, I'm connecting the processes. And when I talk about unified workflow, this workflow could be accessed anywhere, anytime on the using the cloud technologies. Let's say today you're handling one project, but let's say tomorrow you want to scale up to 50 more projects, or you're building up 2-3 more metro lines and you want to scale up that same workflows. Scalability is the plus point of a unified environment as well. And you want your data to be accessible anywhere in any part of the country you're sitting in, basically. And it should be mobile enabled, iPad enabled, whatever it is in this case, basically. And then you also want to see that the stakeholders who are using these unified data environment have a very, very simplified form or understanding, which is very, very important to be utilized till the end phase of my project operations and maintenance. So that's the power of using a unified platform. So I've got all the data sitting on the same platform. I've got AIs and analytics coming in from that environment as well and I have got access levels and enterprise controls for giving in different levels of permissions or controls to the stakeholders who operate in that piece of the project as well, basically. Now, while I'm talking about the unified data, I use a term called as common data environment, which is there. What's common data environment is, it's a platform where you want to construct, connect the whole life cycle of the project, connect the stakeholders, connect the processes, have different forms of data, whether it is in the form of a CAD data, a model, or let's say RFIs, a simple photo from the construction site, and connecting all these information which is related to the project on the common data environment tool in this case, basically. But not forgetting that, cloud looks good, the unified platform is good, but what am I gaining in the form of, analytics to what could make my decision more faster? Let's say I want to allot the same contractor the next project. So what are those important analytics which is necessary in order to analyze whether that contractor fits for my next project as well, or he is aligning to the quality principles which my organization is being taken into consideration, which is there. So reporting, dashboards are different forms of these data which could help you to make your decisions more faster in this case, basically. Now, while you're doing these kind of transformation, when you're moving to a unified cloud platform, definitely at different levels, you need to maintain the security and the confidentiality of your information, which is there, basically. So the unified cloud platform talks about giving access levels on the overall account level, that is the overall organization level, on a project level to the different project head, project leads who might be forming a part of that particular project, and federating that data on the cloud where all the stakeholders can align or assign or take up that same piece of information directly on their machine at whichever geographical location they are located at. Now, while I talked about briefly as to what those workflows are, I'm here to talk about 3 important workflows right now, which is from the design stage to the final stage of my quantification, along with considering the important piece of common data environment and definitely defining in the design analytics, which form a part of my project as well, basically. Let's talk about one example of the legacy way of how do we use to work on a project as well in this case, basically. Now, in the legacy way, definitely, let's talk about an infrastructure project where you've got almost 30 to 35 stakeholders who form a part of the project, not to forget the consultants and the contractors who form a part of that particular piece of project. You see the way the information is moving in different stakeholders. You see the piece of information which is siloed and separated in every stakeholder's machine which is therein. Not every piece of information is moving on to the construction site which is therein, basically. Everything moving on through a general contractor, but you also do not see that same piece of information being connected from the design stage to the final stage of operations, basically. So here is where there is a very, very important requirement of the transparency of that information, and you want the information to be associated on a common data environment. In this case, it could be Autodesk Construction Cloud, where every stakeholder come on that particular platform, collaborate, communicate, and even follow the different processes and workflow as a part of their project as well, basically. Now, while we are talking about using these different technologies which are therein, and I talked about Autodesk Construction Cloud as a part of these projects as well. Now, Autodesk Construction Cloud could be the centerpiece, or a platform which could act as a common data environment for holding this piece of data in this case, basically. Now, so we could centralize our project data in this case so that we have a higher productivity. We even have a record keeping of all the documents which are there. The information which is lying on the system is collated systematically, and the customers access the most accurate piece of information as well in this case, basically. Now, in order to highlight this, preferably I'll talk about the workforce collaboration piece. So you want to integrate communication, improve your collaboration, and you also want to connect both the internal and the external teams which are there, basically. Newer concepts like mixed reality coming into picture, reality capture coming into picture, where you want to take, create BIM models from laser scans, photo scans, manage your job site, see how the progress of the site is, and also connect with, let's say, photographs, videos which are used on the construction site as well, basically. And you also want to enable the basic facilities like the design document management, or the construction file management which are therein, basically. Also taking into consideration that you're also connecting it with the timelines of that particular project, and also taking into consideration the financial and the budget of that particular piece of the project which is therein. Now, there's also a new piece of thing which is the site management piece, which is therein, in order to see that there are lesser number of incidents on the construction site so that it doesn't delay your projects in this case, basically. And you also want to maintain the data which is being generated in the construction site on the same construction cloud or the common data environment as well. And also predict analytics, whether it is through Power BI, using IoTs as a part of your technology, or generating AI-based reports as a part of the project. All these could be enabled by one robust technology, and Autodesk Construction Cloud can suffice this whole piece of integration by connecting different types of construction tools as well, basically. Now, when I talk about Autodesk Construction Cloud, as I said, it's a platform. It not only has its own features, but the highlight of the industry is you need to integrate it with different technologies which are available in the industry in this case. Whether it's a simple connection with a Power BI, or it's a simple connection to tools like Esri, which is therein, basically, or your ERP systems, which you might be using as a part of your organization. So connecting anything from a collaboration standpoint to a budgeting standpoint to a scheduling. So integration is a key piece which is also very, very important to the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform in this case, basically. Now let's talk about the common data environment piece. And as I said, the common data environment piece, the most important piece is controlling the data which is there. So when I say document control, first is you want the data to be stored as a repository on the cloud. Once the data is stored, and what could I do with that data? Preferably, I want to control that piece of information. I want to view the piece of model, drawings, view the financial budgeting. I want to comment on the drawings. I want to mark up those drawings in this case, basically. Or I have got an approval system inside my organization where, the data moving in from, let's say, architecture to structure to MEP guys, or to a GIS person who might be there as a part of my project, to the construction site as well. I also want to ensure that, when I am retaining these documents on the cloud, I also have a facility which tells me that whether I'm referring to the right version of the document. Multiple times it happens, and we have multiple copies of the document resting in a system, and sometimes we don't know whether we are referring to the right document as well. I also need a tool which could connect and collaborate in the form of communication, which could be in the form of marking, redlining on my documents, creating the issue, and informing that stakeholder to do those respective changes also as a part of the project. Now, the basics of the document management tool is the storage repository function. So we could store almost more than 50 plus file formats as a part of a project, starting with the basic format like PDF, Word, Excel, to a BIM model, drawing, videos, etc., which could move on to the platform directly. It doesn't matter what's the size of the file in this case, and that could be all retained on the cloud as well, basically. Now, when we talk about these data repository and multiple stakeholders who are forming a part of the project, confidentiality, security is a very, very important piece of my project as well. So I could create multiple numbers of folders, subfolders, which might form a part of my project for every discipline. I could give them sharing options where an external stakeholder could visualize the document as well. And the third piece is I can also take care of the permissions or the security, which is very, very important for each of my document, which is retained on the cloud in the form of, the rights which I need to assign to the stakeholders as well. The next piece is the version control. As I said, identifying the version changes which are there. And when we are talking about large projects, whether it's a building or an infrastructure project, it's bound to a lot of revisions in the case of the project. And your stakeholder who's sitting in the design team really needs to analyze the changes which are there in the different versions of that particular piece of a BIM model which is there in basically. Let's say any new element, let's say a cable tray which has been added or a duct which has been added, what's been modified, not only in the terms of geometry, but also in the form of properties associated with that particular piece of element as well. Now, a simple intuitive tool like this, which tells you the different changes in the version, different modifications which are forming it, and a tool for comparison, which could compare your last version and the new version directly onto the project. And the USP is whenever you're referring to a project, it always shows you the last online drawing or the last uploaded drawing as the latest version of the drawing, also taking into consideration the old versions of the drawing intact into the system as well in this case, basically. The third important USP is automating the approval process, which is therein. Now, I have got my teams sitting in different locations, and in most of the construction projects, we have got team geographically located, locally sitting in different locations, or people in the lead positions traveling as a part of the project site visits. So how do you maintain the important piece of reviewing the documents which are therein, which the stakeholders in your team might be sending you as a part of the approval, basically? So the processes like automating the approval processes, it could be a group level approval process. It could be a a single step 6-layer approval process, which you might be doing as a part of your documents review, could be done on the platform. It is all automated in the sense, let's say you create a 6-level step approval process. It could identify, complete every layer, and it could automate the next review automatically, which is there. It also takes into consideration the timelines which are required for approval, which is there. You don't want the timelines to exceed as well when you're doing important approvals for the particular piece of project in this case, basically. So your stakeholders can upload their piece of the documents on the cloud, and it could go through a synchronized and a very simple process of approval directly from the platform in this case. The next piece is communication. Markups are good, but let's say I want to do important communication, and let's say if it's an infrastructure project which goes on sometimes from 5 to 7 years in this case, basically. So you want to identify what those issues are. Let's say your structural team has created a very, very important issue in the initial stage of the project, and it's very, very critical, and somebody wants to refer down the line and understand what those issues are. There's an intuitive viewing tool and a dashboard directly on the platform, which could help you in analyzing what those issues are. Not only analyzing it, it could exactly take you to the or pinpoint to the location where this particular issue has been created, what that issue is all about in this case, basically. And it's not only document, but it also numbers that issue in this case, basically. Let's say there are around 500, 600 issues which might have been cleared as a part of a project, but let's say there are some litigations as a part of your project, and you want to refer the history of that issue which is there. Due to a data transparency, it could exactly tell you what is the step which you took as a part of that critical issue. When was it created? When was it closed? And what was the justification which were used by different stakeholders in order to clear and clarify that particular issue in this case, basically. And every issue or every markup is preferably numbered, and you have a history to all those project issues as a part of your project in one single centralized location. Now, markups is one thing which, whether you do it on a hard copy, how good it is to do it on a soft copy directly on an internet browser where you can open up the document, just markup, tell your stakeholders to do that particular piece of change which is therein. And the beauty of the tool is, let's say you're a project lead and you want to access or see that drawing directly on your mobile device. So there are apps which can enable to see that document or that particular piece of BIM model directly on your mobile device and comment on that particular piece of review which you need to do as a part of your project in this case, basically. The next tool which I'm talking about is called as the collaboration piece, which is therein. Now, gone are the days where we're only talking about pushing our data on the cloud, doing markups, and commenting on it, and issue management. We want something more. So as our processes are getting transformed and we see a lot of infrastructure projects coming on BIM, collaboration is one of the key aspects which is required for these projects, which is there. Because we are talking about intricate BIM geometry information along with the associated attributes which are associated with that BIM model in this case. It could be leading to any information of that particular project in this case, basically. And with that, while you're accessing this important piece of information, you also want to take into consideration parameters like, things which are clashing, like a structural beam clashing with an MEP element which is therein, or clarifying those issues directly in the design state instead of doing those issues or costly errors on the construction site and rectifying it later on, basically, which adds to a lot of your cost in this case, basically. And last but not the least, the same tool incorporates also the document management facility as a part of your tool as well, basically. So the key of this particular platform is, I always say it's 3 C's, that is collaboration, communication and coordination, which is required for any of the construction project in this case, basically. Now, when I come on collaboration piece, as I earlier talked about, I want to collaborate anytime, wherever I'm sitting in, with anyone or on any device which I'm trying to access in. And it could be even any type of data format which I want to use in, basically. Let's say your organization is a multi-firm which is talking to many internal and external stakeholders. You want a concurrent authoring facility where a lot of stakeholders are working on the same piece of BIM information. You also want to share virtually that piece of the project which is there. Then the construction cloud tool can help you collaborate that piece of project information in this case, basically. Now, when I'm talking about collaboration, I don't want to, push the piece of information by the way of uploading in this case, but I want to do it directly from my application, which I'm using in directly in the desktop, which is therein. Let's say the designer uses AutoCAD, Revit, or Civil 3D as a part of their project. They have a facility inside their design tool, which can allow them to collaborate directly onto the construction project sitting on from their desktop application in this case, basically. The second piece is, as I talked about, different stakeholders. The personas which you see listed over here are the different stakeholders who needs different level of permissions on the collaborated data on the cloud, which is there. And how do you want to give those kind of configurable permissions based on their roles and rights in this case, basically. So collaboration is definitely important in this case. Now, when I talked about, directly collaborating from the desktop application, let's say, you are an infrastructure firm, your consultant works on the BIM models in this case. So what you could do is like, you can tell your consultants to directly collaborate by using the collaboration facilities available on AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Revit, etc. And they could publish their piece of information. Now, I'm not talking about the final piece of information. The published project goes through different stages, different stakeholders. So every stakeholder, every consultant who is forming a part of the piece of the project can collaborate their piece of information as well. And I'll just go a step back, and it talks about the swim lane tells as to when that particular team has collaborated their piece of information. Now, why am I talking about different teams over here? Now, these models coming from different stakeholders not only needs to lie as an a solo or a siloed BIM model in this case. I want it to be federated in the project in this case, basically. So definitely I've got stakeholders who are federating or pushing that piece of information from their end in this case. And while I'm trying to coordinate that piece of information in the swim lane, it also talks about when that piece of information has been collaborated onto the cloud in this case. Now, while I talk about BIM models, it doesn't only come with model information. There are more pieces of critical informations like updations, which happens regularly, which is therein because the project is ongoing. There are a lot of version and revision changes which happens as a part of your project. The structural and the MEP piece will also use the information which is developed by an architect in this case. And definitely at that piece of the stage, I'm also trying to find out a lot of issues or clashes which form as a part of my project as well, basically. So collaboration definitely is the key directly from my desktop application to the cloud in this case. The second important C which I talked about is communication. How do I communicate about the change management, the revision management? And definitely I need to see the different milestones or the planning milestones which are there in set for completing that project on time as well, and basically. And meanwhile, I'm also talking about data exchanges in different formats, like a structural designing guy giving you the design feasibility information, an MEP guy talking about the utility information, all coming together in the federated piece of information. So I need to track and monitor that, basically. And the second piece is, while I'm doing it on a BIM model, preferably I'm also talking about issues which are pertaining to coordination when different disciplines come and talk to each other. In this case, a mechanical and electrical clash, or a structural and a MEP clash, which is there. And basically, I need to see what those issues are. I need to track those issues, rectify those issues before it moves on to the construction site, in this case, basically. And also send important documents in the form of transmittal. So that's my swim lane on the live platform. I could see when my MEP and structural team has coordinated his piece of information. Now you could see that this is not a federated piece of information. It is just the structural information which is there. Basically, now the information coming in from, or the models coming in from the stakeholders of architectural MEP could be packaged into the single model. And let's say I want to pass on this structural information just to MEP guys, I could consume and transfer that package directly to the other stakeholders who form as a part of my project. And meanwhile, I'm also taking care, let's say I am building up the structural piece for the third floor, and preferably my MEP guy is also working simultaneously. Preferably, I also need to understand different kind of model updates which might happen as a part of a project. It could be any project in this case, basically. And on the left-hand side, I could see and connect my different pieces of federated information. Like now I've connected my structural and MEP piece of information and seen the central piece of information on the common data environment, which is there, basically. Now, the third piece is, I'm not talking about issues which are related to only one discipline. I'm talking about integrated issues when different stakeholders come into the particular project which is there. So the tool can itself automatically identify these costly clashes and updates which are being there on that particular piece of the project. And definitely you could clear up those clashes, group those clashes, rectify those coordination issues well in advance, in this case, on the platform, in this case, basically. So that's an example. Let's say I have got my different pieces of information coming in from different stakeholders. What I'm trying to do is like connect those information, view those information, and let's say the new version of the MEP piece of information which has come to me, I need to check whether it is error-free, clash-free with my structural team members in this case, basically. So I could do it on the go instead of doing exactly at the end of the project or doing it on different time intervals. So as soon as these stakeholders push the piece of information, the tool can automatically identify in a form of a dashboard the different clashes which are being created as a part of the project as well, basically. And definitely it could be rectified. And the best piece is, while you're clarifying or cleaning these clashes as a part of your project in this case, it also has a facility to notify my stakeholders, whether it is MEP or on the construction site, about clarifying and fixing those issues right while I am in the design stage in this case. So that's the power of using coordination as a part of your project in this case, basically. And while I am, triggering or clearing those issues, I can make the respective stakeholders, deliver or clear those coordination issues well on time, and see all these issues in a dashboard directly onto the portal, and the project head could see in what those issues are directly on the platform as well in this case. Now, I talked about document management. I talked about why collaboration and coordination is very, very critical, and it solves definitely 4 issues to you. Preferably, it makes it as a repository, or it addresses the common data environment. It gives you a unified data platform. In case if you are working on an infrastructure project, which is BIM enabled in this case, it could also take care of the design collaboration issues along with the costly coordination issues which form as a part of your project as well. Now let's talk on the next piece, which is there in basically. So I talked about the important pieces of design, but then I have got one of my team which is involved into the estimation process as well in basically. Now, while I'm performing these estimation processes, the Construction Cloud platform could perform estimations directly on a 2D takeoff or a 2D drawing, which is there. Where could I estimate by using my different area principle tools, which is there. It could also identify, let's say my drawing is getting updated, my model is getting updated, the variance quantities which are changing in between different versions of my drawing, as well as the variance cost which is associated with that particular change in estimation as well. Basically, that's an example of a simple CAD drawing where I am trying to calculate the area, and preferably I could simply use my typical area calculation tools which are there over here. Now I'm talking about this on a top of a CAD drawing. I'm not talking about it on a top of a BIM model. I could specify the cutouts, the spaces for the columns, and then estimate the quantity which is there now, which is 99% accurate, which is as per the design drawing in this case, basically. Could be estimated in definitely different units as well in this case, basically. And that's an easy way of doing a quick takeoff on a 2D drawing in this case. Now, in case of a BIM model, this becomes more and more simplified because you have got your BIM model, you have identified different elements. What you could also do is like condition that particular piece of model. Let's say there are around 500, 600 columns which are there, but let's say you want the quantity of the column per floor, or you want the quantity of the columns directly on my refugee floors, etc. So you could condition your model. You could break down your project into different phases and then quantify the takeoffs of the different elements which form part of your BIM model. Now, once the BIM model is there, the tool has a capability which could help you in splitting the pieces of information, using different, because we use different thumb rule calculations, formulas while, doing complex quantity calculations as well. And meanwhile, while you're calculating, you're also able to visualize. So the estimator is also able to visualize that piece of element when he is trying to quantify that project as well in this case. Now that's an example of the same image which is there, and I'm trying to quantify the different structural columns of a particular size over here. I could definitely code it out that it belongs to my structural metal framing aspect in this case. And what is the respective outputs? Do I need it in the form of tons, which is there in, do I need it in cubic meters, etc., depending upon the units which I'm using. So as it's a structural unit, preferably I want it to be in the volumes or in tons in this case, basically. And then I could calculate that as a part of my project as well in this case, basically. Now, while I am calculating it, it could also specify and keep those information. Now, the best thing to note here is, let's say this model gets updated, changed, automatically the different version of the quantities will be also updated on the cloud automatically in this case. So you did not run these calculation formulas again, and preferably it will also give you the variance which is therein between the first version of that columns quantification which you did to the second version of the quantification of that particular piece of the model as well. So that's the important piece of quantification. And once you have quantified, preferably you want that report to be in a form of Excel sheet. You want to connect it to Power BI in this case, basically, whether it is 2D, 3D, doesn't matter. You want to fill it automatically in your RFPs, which you're giving to subcontractors, etc. So these kind of integrations could be performed, and doing the calculations or the estimates on the BIM model also ensures that your auditing of the quantity is accurate in this case, basically, where you're not hypothetically, increasing the quantity by a 10% or a 15% hike in the quantities which are there in basically. So it's to the point and it's accurate, specific to the version and the change management which is happening in this case, basically. The last piece is, now I talked about document management, collaboration, coordination. I talked about quantification. What I want is, as a project head or as the owner of that organization, I want important prediction in analytics, which forms a very, very important critical part of my construction project to my decision making in this case, basically. It could be in the form of issues on the construction site. It could be on the form of documents moving in, etc. It could be any of these in this case, basically. Now let's talk about how do we use this analytics as a part of my project. One is a typical Excel-based reporting, or it could be on the form of a cloud in the form of dashboards, or it could be a simple integration with Power BI in this case, basically. So let's say I am handling a project and I've got multiple stakeholders which are there. So you could see that I've got my quantities which are defined at the bottom in this case. I've got the takeoff quantity for my different MEP elements with respect to this to the site. I'm also taking into consideration whether that MEP element is installed on the construction site or not in this case, and what's the percentage of completion of that particular piece of element which is there in basically. So I've got all these dashboards which I could automatically generate as a part of my project. So you could monitor the project progress, you could track the quantity in this case, you could track the variance which has been due to the change management as a part of your project. And if you also see, it is also taking care of the project breakdowns as well on the terms of the completion aspects as to how ahead or far are you from constructing that particular or reaching the timelines of completing that project on the construction site as well, basically. You could also create critical Power BI dashboards in order to understand as to whether you're 60% completed, which is there in quantification piece, how has it been installed, whether it is still being installed, or any changes which are happening. And so these dashboards could be customized as per your requirements with Power BI in this case, basically. Now I've got a very, very here I'm talking about an example of a customer called as BIAL, where I'm talking about the Bangalore International Airport project, which is there, which is into especially the T2 extension piece of the project as well, in basically. Now, what BIAL did as a part of their project in this case, while they were doing this particular piece of extension, they wanted to reinvent, reimagine, and rethink how the passenger experience can be increased for a very, very smart and futuristic infrastructure airport, which is there. And you also want to see that the infrastructure is more sustainable in this case, basically. So while completing this Terminal 2 project in the record time, this particular airport is on an area of 5 million square feet in this case, basically. And it is the third busiest airport in India, which includes almost 600 aircraft movements daily in this case, basically. So the Terminal 1 was definitely built in 2008 in this case, but the new terminal which is getting constructed, in the case of Terminal 1, they almost saw a record of 33.3 million passengers transitioning from that particular piece of the airport in this case, basically. Now, this new airport, which was being conceptualized by organizations like SOM and Skidmore, they took the onus of building this in the Garden City of India. And this particular project is very, very unique in nature because of the scale of the size of the airport, the timeline which they took in, and the site was totally paperless, as the design and the construction teams working in parallel, both for the coordination and for the construction site execution in this case. Now, when I talk about this big particular project in this case, the BIAL team worked on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. They transformed their processes. They've got almost 36, 37 consultants just in the design phase. And they went into connected design and planning data environment in this case, basically. Every consultant was based in different locations, And BIAL was able to bring together these different consultants into one office, which is there in basically. And there was almost 5,000 drawings just released in 6 months. And we are talking about collaboration between consultants. We are talking collaboration between contractors, designers, and all doing collaboration and coordination, and also taking consideration into sustainable practices where no paper is moving on the construction site. Now, sustainability being a very, very important core part of the design. Now, what BIAL also did is this project enabled daylighting and natural ventilation in that project by more than 20% in this case, basically. And whatever, trees which got cut down during the expansion phase of the project, they've all replanted and built it into a new landscape, which is there in basically. And 50% of the space is more of garden space, which is there in. And as I talked about, the increasing demand for daylighting and natural ventilation being taken care, so that so that more HVAC is being circulated, system is circulated through those spaces. In this case, we are providing the fresh oxygen to the conditioned spaces, etc. So sustainability formed a very, very important key facet of this project, along with the connected design platform in this case, basically. This entire infrastructure project was BIM enabled. And the best part is the reduction time for RFIs, which are there in basically. So we are talking about a reduction time of RFI from almost 12 days to 4 days, where every pre-check was done on the construction cloud in this case. And we are also talking about the important parameter is utilizing the 100% capabilities on the construction cloud and no working hours lost. So you don't want people to be working overtime, but you want those people to use 8 hours of their time. And we are talking about almost involving 40,000 workers on this particular construction project in this case, basically. So there was no need for overtime, with efficiency gains which were achieved as a part of the project. Last but not the least, what they're also trying to do in this case is the project might be looking good, but then in order to operate and maintain that particular kind of infrastructure facilities, you need those information coming from BIM tools to be used for the operations of that particular piece of the project. Let's say any element which is being modeled, the operators and the maintenance handover guys could visualize even every CCTV camera installed on the site, sitting on their machine, control the temperature of the ACs, preferably maintain the lighting which is there inside the airport, etc. So every piece of information is being controlled by IoT applications in this case, basically. And operations and a maintenance guy can also raise a ticket. There could be predictive and maintenance checks which could be performed on that particular elements which are there as a part of the utilities in this case, and also talk about the energy savings which has happened on that particular site as well, in basically. So that's the end of my piece, where I talked about the whole ecosystem from the pre-construction stage, where I highlighted document management, design collaboration, coordination in this case. I'll pass on this to my colleague Shitanshu, who will talk about the further processes in the construction site in this case, basically. Shitanshu, over to you.
Thank you, Preeti, so much. I hope I'm audible. Just confirming. Perfect. Yeah. After hearing you for almost last 1 hour, I believe in your passion. So let me now take it forward. How do we take this design data towards the construction side of it? So let me just share my slide. Yeah. So a very good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Shitanshu Jain. So now, and this has been a big challenge in the industry today, that how do I take all the data which I have authored or have designed during the design stage and pre-construction to further into my construction phase of the project, and then even to operations phase. So we have tools present already, which probably look at only the construction or only the design part of the project. This Autodesk Build allows you to, as a common data environment, allows you to use the same design data, same pre-construction data, and leverage it for the construction part of the project. So in this, we're going to talk about project management, QHSE, cost management, and then of course the common underlying technology, which is called document management. So Autodesk Build as a module is a extension of Autodesk Construction Cloud, built on the same platform of Forge and the Autodesk Docs, which is the common data environment, and allows you for specifically for the owners and the contractors to take the data from your designers or your DDCs, infrastructure projects, and use it for project management, cost management, QHSE, and finally handover of the project. Mindful of the time, I will try to showcase the highlights of the solution. We will, of course, be more than willing to showcase it into your for your respective projects, and how it can be used and leveraged in your processes around your current state of work, and etc. So starting with project management, and something where Preeti ended off is more around dashboards. So one of the beauty of Autodesk Construction Cloud is that we have so much of data inside it, and it's so highly attributed that I can extract this data and use it in form of the dashboards or the data which I want to see at different levels. So my management might like to see a data of high level accounted at for all the projects together. A project manager might like to see only the day-to-day activities of his own project. So that becomes the one of the differentiators, that what data do I want to see and how I do want to see it. And this is one of the openness or openness of this platform, that it allows you access to most of the data points which are created within it. And of course, like Preeti also mentioned, not only as a dashboard, but also integrating it with external solutions, other third-party softwares which you might be already using, or which might suffice a particular solution for your organization. They are able to integrate with this common data environment. So, and moving down more towards the project management activities. So, and this has been a major pain point. We have been speaking to owners and contractors, and how do I track requests for informations in my project? How do I track or make sure that all the data which is associated with an RFI, for example, my costs, my drawings, my models, my Excel files, PPDs, whatever, my change orders, whatever is there in part of my RFI is connected to each other, and it's just not a physical document which remains in a file somewhere in my office. So the idea behind this is that how do we create, first of all, or how do we enable all the stakeholders in the construction to share RFIs, to have a approval workflow in place, so that the RFI is going through the right channel. How do I connect my field and office? How do I link my models, drawings to my RFIs, etc. And essentially, and in the end, if that RFI is going to have any cost impact, whether it's a PCO or an OCO, whatever, so it is able to reflect in my project itself. And more about submittals, like how right now when I'm giving any transmittal or submittals to my contractor, I'm limited by the external tools like WeTransfer or emails, and I have to send a lot of documents to them. But the idea here is that how, because I have all the access to information in one single data source, how I can attach whatever information I need from the platform in my submittal and give it to my contractor or a fabricator, which allows them to have that access to the latest version of the files, reviews, markup, comments, whatever has happened in the past, and can use it to take conscious decision of what to execute it on the site. And of course, because the submittals are coming all together, so as an owner, I'm able to track which submittals have gone out, which are pending, and what are the responses from the contractors, or any RFIs associated with those submittals. All those activities can be tracked in one single source. Minutes of meeting have been a major pain point for most of the consultants and the owners, on especially on infrastructure projects. So in a day, you might be having 20 to 30 different meetings across the board with different stakeholders. Minutes of meetings on Autodesk Construction Cloud allows you to track and have action points against each and every area of concern, and then to have accountability assigned to it. Of course, now that we are moving more towards a digital way of communications, so it allows you to have integrations even with Zoom or MS Teams or any other third party digital meeting you're having. So this makes sense because a lot of your information, all the action points across all the meetings are in one single place. So you know what are important, what are pending, etc. So all those issues can be tracked on one single screen. Daily reports, again, so daily reports, you are able to track your what are the activities which are going on site today, and these daily reports also can be automated in a way that I can capture automatically, okay, for that particular location, what is the weather conditions, what is the GPS location. All these things can help me in even correlating the weather conditions with why that particular item of work did not happen on the site. So all these things make my life simpler. And these, again, this forms or these daily reports are because they are in form of attributed information, they can further be you can say integrated with a dashboard technology like Power BI and used to give you a complete bird's eye view of what has happened on my project over a period of time. This allows you, even at a level of a contractor or a subcontractor, to identify which are doing well, which are doing not so well, and which actions need to be taken, what are the issues which are cropping up, correlated with the issues or delays which are happening on site, and then take the necessary action. A new feature in Autodesk Build, which has been launched recently, is around schedule management. So you have in a project a schedule, of course, like time is one of the critical concepts, critical part of management in our project. So schedule allows you to track Primavera or MSP schedules in your on this online platform. So we believe that if one person is creating a schedule, there are 10 people in a project who are actually reviewing it, absorbing it, or making comments on top of it. So the idea here is that the person who is making the schedule, he uploads the schedule, it becomes an intelligent like line items with intelligent schedule tracking, which can be accessed even on a mobile device on site. The person who is reviewing it can give his comments, can give suggestions around whether this particular item is actually being completed or not, which can then go back to the person who is making the schedule. He can make updates and everything on one single platform. This we will show further that how the schedule can also be linked to your cost to give you the S curves which everyone desires, and depending upon the status of the project, these S curves can automatically showcase you your metrics. Now, cost management is and currently being done for most contractors or owners more in ERPs or in Excel form as of now. The challenge is that in ERPs, it is more of financial accounting. In Excel, they are just dumb information which is there. But what Autodesk Construction Cloud allows you is to create intelligent cost management templates or tools, which allows all the stakeholders who are involved in a project, starting from the owner to contractor, subcontractor, even design consultants, to manage their cost on one platform. So starting from, like, as an owner, if I want to create a budget for my entire project at a level of item of works, I'm able to do that now. I'm able to create an intelligent item of works, which I can further subdivide amongst my subcontractors and contractors, design consultants, and then enable my contractors that they can submit project accounting based bills or any change orders through this platform itself. So this allows me to, for example, to create costs. Even, for example, if I have to, as a dashboard, I have to track at any given point of time as an owner or a contractor, what is the status of my current project cost. I'm able to get that automatically out of the system. All this data is because in one single platform. So if any contractor is raising any bills for payment, etc., It will go through an entire workflow within the contractor organization or the owner organization, having all the approvals in process in place. Even to an extent, your contracts as a template, your change orders, everything can be generated out of this platform for having a unified access. And this is the part I was talking about earlier, that how I can link my project schedule, which I have imported into ACC, with my project cost, giving me a bird's eye view of the what is the health of my project. This can be done at the project level and even at an item level or item of work level also. So this allows me how to track where I am right now, what are my key metrics, what is the forecast of the cost forecasted for completion of the project, etc. Thirdly, we come to quality and safety management aspect of the project. This has over a period of time now become very important in our projects, more from the compliance point of view also. So how do I track quality and safety aspects on my project? So I can create intelligent quality checklists, quality plans for my organization. And challenges now, most of the times I'm stuck with recreating the checklist on the platform. But here I have an option that if I'm using a PDF form, which most of the organization might already be doing, I can simply upload that, which becomes a smart PDF, and I can start using it to manage my quality checklist. So I don't need to start working from the scratch. I don't have to start creating quality safety checklist. Again, safety, I can create using a smart PDF, create a template in the forms, and start using it for my projects. Then comes a part of, again, the punch and the snack list. So, and these all tools have access onto your mobile devices also, even tablets. So they are device independent. I can use iOS, Android, or laptop. Even you can download these and fill it up and upload it when you have access to internet. So all these inspections, safety inspections, quality inspections, punch list, checklist can be identified, can be tagged to a location, can be tagged to a person, contractor. All this information and reports at the end of it can be then shared with the relevant stakeholders to take necessary action. Having a documentary proof is probably not enough. Having photographs and videos attached to it makes it more even relevant. So with the mobile device or having access to these photographs, you can simply attach them to any information in the platform. So that could be your issues, RFI, submittals, or your cost management or schedule. So all these photographs which are you're taking from the site or even from the project itself, 3D model of the project itself, they can be attached to the relevant item, which gives you authenticity or authenticity of this is the proof of something which is happening on site. And these photographs, when you're taking it from a mobile phone, are automatically GPS tagged, giving more relevance to it. Moving more towards commissioning and handover stage of the project. So this is the beauty of the project also, that how do I track all the assets which are coming into my project? By assets, I mean, for example, your HVAC equipment, your mechanical equipments, your specialty equipment, all those parts, how I am able to track starting from the ordered stage to coming on site to being installed, whether they're commissioned. So all that can be tracked. And again, because this information is there on the same platform, I can attach it to any warranty documents, all commissioning documents, any checklist, etc. So that at any given point of time, I can track what has happened on that particular equipment site. And then lastly, more towards the end of the project, how as a contractor or a design consultant, I'm able to give my as-built drawings to the owner. These are automatically can be exported from the project. These are it's just a click of a button. All the documents which are there, all the final revision document, all the markups, issues, everything which had been part of the project through the life cycle at the handover stage of the project can be exported as a PDF and used for documentary evidence. So with this, I would like to move more towards how do we implement such a platform. Like we discussed, there are a lot of tools with multiple technologies, multiple functions. So we have a platform which is the ACC as a platform as for designers, concrete takeoff, construction management, common data environment, and we believe that in fact, as a platform, it can be accessed and enable everyone from top to bottom. And so this becomes very important from us as Capricorn, like how do we enable you to use and choose the right technology. So for this, and we have from the our experience of talking to a lot of stakeholders in the industry, we have found that a lot of times we are doing it more from FOMO, like more from fear of missing out. We believe that somebody else is already using a piece of technology, whatever technology it is. That's why we want to do it. Whereas we believe it should be more driven by what is important to you. What are you looking out of a piece of technology? What are your business challenges? What are the business outcomes you are looking at? So these business outcomes, like we talked about, different outcomes we can have out of this ACC. So whether I'm focused more towards winning more business, whether I'm improving my quality, cost, schedule, health, safety. Of course, all these factors are important in a project, but what is important for you, that is where it counts in terms of having a defined digital transformation strategy in your organization. So we believe that first part is defining business outcomes, and across your project life cycle, then how do I put these business outcomes across a project life cycle? So for example, in portfolio performance, I might like to have better planning at the start of the project. I might want to reduce the life cycle cost of my project, including O&M. I want to grow my portfolio. I want to improve my projects. I want to reduce friction between the stakeholders. I want to ensure and adhere to my cost and project schedule. So all these things, a lot of things, what is important to you as a client, as your project stakeholder, as a project stakeholder. So that is what we define as a business outcome. Then comes the part of that, okay, so now you have defined these are the pieces of outcomes you're looking for. So then what are the technologies which are available which help you achieve that outcome? These can be in silos or these can be as an extended platform. So across your project life cycle, depending on what kind of stakeholder you are for in that infrastructure project, what is the outcomes you're looking at, then we come to a stage of what is the technology you require. Today, for each and every outcome that you're looking for, there is a technology available. But it is a very important factor here to allocate the right technology to the business outcome which is important to you. So then we have more around, and this is just a sample of what we do as while implementing such a technology, any technology, is to first actually understand what you do, understand what are your challenges, understand what are your pain points. And we have stakeholder level meetings, multiple stakeholder level meetings, define your custom scope, your customized scope of work, then configure a project for depending on your typology, do create users on different profiles, and then of course the ultimate goal of implementation and trading, where we take it beyond and help you in actually using the technology over a period of time, giving you a hand holding, making sure that at least first couple of projects you are able to deliver successfully using that piece of technology. And that could be across the project lifecycle, starting from design, takeoff, pre-construction, construction, and then O&M part of the project. So with this, we would like to end today's session. But before we do that, we will take up some question and answers. Preeti, so we have some questions. I'll take some, I'll just spit them out. So is there any white paper documenting the ROI on BIM adoption in Indian context? If so, can this be elaborated on whether the entire life cycle cost was considered and the process of quantifying the same? Did you unmute? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Shitanshu, there are plenty of these white papers. I can't say that everything is on an Indian context, which is there. But what we could do is like there are a lot of customer success stories which are very, very Indian specific, where they have quantified the ROI on the BIM projects based on their projects which are there. So that could be definitely shared in this case as well. And I think the next part of the question says whether the same life cycle cost was considered and the process of quantifying the same. I think it's more on a white paper, Shitanshu. We can share this particular.
Okay. So next question is any tool for resource planning vis-a-vis machinery, men, materials, and its management? So I believe the short answer is yes, but we'll have to look at like what is the extent of resource planning is required, and we can do it with a mix of cost management and assemble on this. So Preeti, a question here.
I think it talks more about legacy collaboration in this case.
So I think you'll have to clarify over there what you meant by that. Yeah.
Okay. So when I talk about legacy way of collaborating, I'm talking about when I talk about collaboration, we are talking about the platform which holds that data. When in the form of earlier way of collaborating, we don't have a platform. Every data is exchanged via emails or some sort of FTPs, emails, etc., which is therein. The communication is, let's say, a structural and an MEP guy coordinating. He sends his piece of the data, then the MEP guy updates the drawing or the BIM model, which is therein basically. Now, this could happen on the fly. This could happen more dynamically in the modern way of collaborating in this case, basically. The third important aspect is, in case of a building project, it's still okay. But in case of an infrastructure project, as we are maintaining that project for, let's say, the next 60, 70 years, which is therein, you need those data to be maintained with that project, to be retained in that particular BIM model, which is therein. Now, if it is the legacy way of collaborating where everything is happening in silos, the data not resting on a single repository, preferably, we are losing the essence of using a BIM as a methodology of the communication which is therein. Not only BIM, but let's say even in the form of, if it is in the form of drawings, etc., what happens to that data if it is rusting on your local machines, if it's not on the cloud, you're not changing the practices of collaborations, etc. So it has its own downfalls compared to the newer way of collaborating in this case. And the last important piece is we are not losing the information which an architect or a design team is creating the very, very initial stage of pre-construction. And let's say I want to use the data at the last stage of operations and maintenance, which is there. So I don't want to lose that data. In a legacy way of collaboration, what you're doing is like at the end of the project, you create a project handover document set and then submit it to the operations and the maintenance guy. What about the efforts which all these teams have done as an earlier part of the project, which is there? So there are its own pros and cons. I hope I explained what legacy compared to the new way of common data environment way of collaborating them.
Thank you, Preeti. There's one question that it sounds very, very good. What are the downsides, negative, cons? So I'll just like to highlight over here. And this is very similar to what Preeti mentioned about legacy collaboration. So this is not more of a downside, more of a challenge. And the biggest challenge we have seen in towards digitization or digitalization is change management. We as human beings are used to a certain way of working. And this is the hardest part in the entire process. But how do I change my way of working if I'm used to a particular piece of technology or say even a manual way of working? How do I bring everybody on board? And other way around it, other thing is that because there's a lot of transparency which improves, a lot of accountability which increases using this technology. So that also creates sort of a challenge in large infrastructure projects. So not a negative, but yes, these are the challenges which we believe are there in these kind of technologies. And more, the biggest piece in that is processes and people, because even in this is not India specific, it's a global challenge, that especially in construction, the processes differ from organization to organization or project to project, and it's very subjective depending upon who is calling the shots in that particular project. So with this, we would conclude this session. We really thank everyone and all the participants who are there. If you have any question, please feel free to drop us an email. We will get back to you immediately. And thank you again. Have a good afternoon. See you in the next session at 3 o'clock, which is more around BIM and integrating GIS, which we believe is the next frontier in AC technology. So see you at 3, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.